Now live.
Okay, welcome, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. It's January 7th, Wednesday. It's our 9 o'clock morning meeting. We're going to start our meeting this morning talking with the folks from the Vermont Arts Council. We've got two folks coming up, one Michelle, so whoever wants to come up, come on up.
Michelle's gonna talk to you, but I'll get the
Okay.
master. Good morning, everyone.
Right. Susan, if you could identify
Yes.
yourself for the record, please. And we do have some documents that have been submitted to our webpage.
We do.
You're gonna put it up on our screen as well.
I am. Let me get my Zoom. Oh, there we go. Share. It's full screen on my phone. There we go. Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Evans McClure. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Arts Council. Welcome back. Happy to be here with you all today. And big thank you to Representative Hedrick for being a member of our Art and State Buildings Advisory Committee, and to the VGS team also for their important partnership on this program. Today we're going to give you a little history of the program, kind of the mechanics of how it works. It is a really important program, not just for the artists that it supports, the community members who get to participate in it, the state employees who benefit from it. But I think it's a really unique way to do public art, which, there are public art programs in funded by almost every state in the country. They're all important and great. Ours is one of the more unique ones, and that we're really focused on developing it in partnership with the community that it's being impacted by.
I'm gonna stop you right there. So this is public art, but it's in our state buildings. So that's what you gotta have in your mind. These are in our state buildings. It's not municipal buildings. It's not highway. It's not out there. These are for projects that we do with our state buildings. It could be the training academy in Pittsburgh. It could be a courthouse. It could be a correctional facility. It could be a state office building. Those are the forensic lab, the health lab, the state hospital, the secure residential. If we do something to replace Woodside, it would be in that building. So that's where these art projects are. So that's why it's connected to the capital bill. And that's why we fund it through the capital bill, because it's within our state buildings. So I just wanted to be clear, so people don't think this is public art everywhere in Vermont.
So the program was established in 1988 by statute. It had really strong support from this committee, businesses and artists. And the act requires that approved funds from the capital budget are transferred to an art acquisition fund. We'll get into the mechanics of that in a minute, for the purpose of providing new artwork in public buildings and facilities. So as the chair just said, the enabling legislation says that the project may take place in any state building or facility undergoing new construction or renovation. Could include an addition, and the projects have to be tied to capital bill projects that are over $1 million. And since its founding, the program has commissioned over 60 artists to create work that's currently in 36 state-owned buildings. Projects have been completed in 12 of Vermont's 14 counties as well. And as the chair mentioned, in 2023 with Act 50, the program was updated, including a new funding mechanism that sets a minimum annual requested appropriation of $75,000 as a separate line item in the capital bill. And this was the first funding increase since the program was established. So the program is administered by the Arts Council in partnership with BGS and is overseen by the Art and State Buildings Advisory Committee.
Yes.
So Michelle, do you want to? Yeah.
So occasionally just stand right here. I just have a few slides.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Michelle Bailey. I'm the Senior Program Manager at the Vermont Arts Council, and I administer this program on behalf of the organization and in partnership with the state. And just wanted to give you a little overview of the process. First of all, just a few notes about what language is in the statute. And there is a link to the statute in the information that we sent you, but it's also on the screen here that, first of all, there's an Art and State Buildings Advisory Committee established in the statute. The role of that committee is that they provide final approval of project sites, the budget, works. They also approve any final designs of works of art and establish the guidelines and oversee all the processes that we do through those guidelines. So The members of that committee or their designee, as we mentioned, include the Commissioner of Buildings and General Services, the Director of the Vermont Arts Council, the chairs of both House and Senate institutions, committees, or their designees, state curator, and the chair of the Vermont State Board of Architects. And as I said, they also established the guidelines for that management of the program. And per those guidelines, the committee is basically kind of the final authority on matters of the Art and State Buildings program, just so that we have an oversight and we come to them for those types of things. So the statute also established an art acquisition fund to finance the design, construction, integration, and purchase or commissioning of works of art for the program per the statute. Per the statute, the funds shall be composed of any amounts transferred to or appropriated to it by the General Assembly. The use of funds, the amounts of the funds shall be extended upon order of the council for the acquisition or commissioning of works of art and administration of the program. And then fund balances, any balance remaining at the end of the fiscal year shall remain in the fund.
And for folks, that last bullet's important to remember as we discuss what's at play here. So are there any questions right now in terms of how that program is structured? For
Not yet.
now? Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Just a quick visual of the cycle per the statute and the program guidelines. Our first step is that staff and BGS commissioner and other staff, we all get together and we talk about what are those capital projects that might be in the pipeline. What are some possible projects that we might look at? And we use a set of criteria that are published in our guidelines, which we look at the kind of public accessibility of the building, kind of in the context of its usage, the community or the agency occupant interest, the potential for artistic innovation. We also look at that regional distribution of the funds over the course or the lifespan of the program. And as you may have seen this in the slide, we have 36 buildings, 12 out of the 14 counties. So in the 37-ish years that we've been running the program, there's a lot of art out there that we've been able to commission with Vermont artists out there. We coordinate with local and regional arts planning, public use and visitation of the site, and then the potential for occupant benefits for the artwork that may be in facilities that are maybe less accessible to the public, but there may be some real value to having those spaces be very filled with art. So once we kind of determine together, we look at what might those recommendations be. That recommendation comes to that advisory committee in step number 2 for their recommendation, looking at the site and the amount of, within that $50,000 to $75,000 now for approval. Then once that is approved by that advisory committee, we generate a memo to BGS commissioner and request that those funds be transferred into the art acquisition fund. And then the VCA, the Arts Council staff, primarily me and whatever project manager might be assigned to a particular site, get together, we talk about the timeline. We identify a committee, we have a whole process to do a call to artists. Now, sometimes with the goal of the program being to get involved as early as possible, it can sometimes take a little while, sometimes years, before a project is kind of ready for us to get in, even though it's been identified as Art and State Buildings project. So we sometimes have a time frame that we have to wait, which is important to for us to be able to access those funds in a timely manner when it does come around. And from time to time, buildings that we had identified don't move forward for various reasons. And that could be because the scope of the work has changed, the building is not going to have a renovation now. There's so many factors, as you all know, probably more than I do, that things change in the planning. So if that's the case and we've identified a project, then we see in the purple here, we go back up to the commissioner. We have similar conversations saying, hey, this building's not moving forward. We've been hanging on to this fund, money in the fund for a bit, but let's assign a new building to it. We've already got that money in the fund. Let's assign another project to it. And we do that again collaboratively. We bring that to the advisory committee and then kind of move forward in our process. So that's kind of the cycle of these. And once we do get moving, then we work to do, we have a local art selection committee. We do a call to artists. The artist is put under contract. They make the art. It's fabricated and installed at the site. We have a big party and then the process starts again. So that's the process. Just looking at my notes here. I think that's all for me. You were going to pick up from here, right? Just to kind of go over the status of some of our projects that were in the pipeline.
Yes.
So the advisory committee plugs in at 2 points. They plug in at the beginning of the process when the commissioner of BGS recommends projects to the advisory committee. And then the advisory committee can weigh that. And then once it's been decided, yes, that project is a project that will be available for public art, then you start working on the art project itself. And then the design of the art project, and that could be a year later, goes back to the advisory committee to be approved by the advisory. And once that is approved, then they go forward with the process. Fine.
It's for either presenter or the chair, I suppose, but why, you both mentioned now that this is limited to construction or renovation over a certain amount of money. It wouldn't have to be, right? You could do it in any building. So is that just a limit choice? Like why is it reserved for those cases?
Well, most, some maintenance issues could be at 250,000 or minor renovations might be at $500,000 or something. You don't want to get it involved in an art project like this. So having $4 million for a project indicates that it's a pretty large project that you're going to building project that you're going to be doing. You need some kind of a floor there in terms of where you can do your art projects in a state building.
Like it's an old building that you really like, there's nothing gonna happen there for a while, you'd like to stick some art in there. Yeah,
It's usually not really the way it goes.
but yeah, I'm curious why. Just cause.
Commissioner, could you identify yourself for the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wanda Manoli, Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. I just want to say that's a great question. Because as we've been meeting, I'm going to just connect it to the capital bill. So, as the chair and some of the other members know, at one point in time, we were building and doing major renovations, in the early 2000s, even in the late 1990s. And this program has really evolved from that. And it was a great way to incorporate into the construction or the renovation pieces of art. So it wasn't just buying a piece of art, you could blend it in. What is occurring and what I'm just going to talk about it now, is that we do not have those mass projects. And the projects that are on our list that we've identified, and we can go through that, you are all going to see, for example, the youth facility. That project's been identified. That might be 5, it could be sooner, but so some of those projects, because we've connected it to the construction and the renovation, we don't have a lot of choices. And so it's one of the conversations that I'm just going to bring it up now because we were saying, should we talk to the committee and the legislature about, are there newer buildings or things that we've invested in that maybe you could start identifying where we could bring that in to give respect to the program as well. But that's part of what we're struggling is we don't, when you look at your list of what you've approved in the last couple of years and what's on the list for demands going forward, there's not a lot of choices, Madam Chair.
So is the $1 million floor a problem?
I'm going to.
Because when you had a lot of construction, you really had to have a floor.
Right.
The other piece, I think that may be starting to come to play, because I used to be on the advisory committee. The other piece is starting to come to play. Some of these art displays have been in for 20, 25 years, and there needs to be some maintenance and upgrade to it. And that's been an issue that's been percolating out there for the last 4 or 5 years, and we haven't really addressed that.
Yes.
So this is something new as well.
I mean, it's a
Particularly if it's
wonderful program.
particularly if it was part of part of the construction of the building, like it could be part of a wall, it could be part of handrails, and then you got to maintain them. They're 20, 25 years old.
I mean, it's been a wonderful program. It's been so successful. I still remember walking into the Mahaney Courthouse and seeing my first piece of art installed. It's, but while you have evolved and while you're focusing on different things, we need to at least give the tool and the advisory committee, I think, options, because they are, I think the preference is new work and putting it in the buildings. Maybe I'll let them speak to that. But I wasn't able to give them a lot of options when we met.
For new projects moving forward.
For move,
Yeah.
We're not doing some of those big projects, and the big projects we are doing are delayed for a variety of reasons, which is the juvenile center and the women's
or the
reentry.
board court, or, you'll see the list shortly.
Mhm. And when we go, yeah, so the other thing I just want to mention too is in our cycle, when while the Arts Council kind of administers the project, the way it is set up is when the artwork is installed, it is state artwork, state-owned artwork. So that is, I think that's a really important point. The long-term maintenance
Maintenance and
of
all that.
that is huge.
Where does the money come from? Because we have not addressed that.
And I think, not to get theoretical about public art, but there is a really interesting discussion nationwide right now about if public art is forever. So there also could be choices to be made about, and that's actually in the updated guidelines that we spent a long time working on is there a point at which you say, this artwork is 25 years old, we have new money in the budget, we want to change it and make a new one. That could be a totally fine decision to make too. It's not something we've done so far in the process, but I think as the commissioner said, I think that as things are changing, that we're open to evolving and adapting the program as it makes sense too.
And once the artwork does go to become property of the state, then the state curator office kind of takes it over as part of the art collection. So we run the process, get the art process administered, art installed, and then the state curator's office takes over from there. So, have some future conversations about what maintenance and the other things look like.
Any other questions?
So I go through the.
Well,
I do want to ask this question because I thought it was interesting. The title of the program is Art in State Buildings, but I could tell a lot of them outside. So I'm assuming state property is included on that, but I'm just curious, what's the variety within the portfolio right now of the different ranges?
Outside.
Because obviously, as you can tell, I hate art, so it's outside.
Well, Michelle's
part of it.
almost every single one of these. So do you want to talk about how that decision is made?
Oh, well, yeah, it really depends a lot on the what's being done in the building, occupants of the building, the public visibility at the site. So there's a variety of works that are integrated into buildings, floors, walls. We had a railing at the Franklin Courthouse, which was the very first project that we did with this program back in 1990. It was installed, and of course now it didn't meet ADA guidelines anymore. So the front of the courthouse has been renovated up there in St. Albans. So anyway, those are a few of the things like that, but lots of paintings, some murals. There's almost anything you can imagine as public art.
And I think what's really important, Representative, is that what I've really appreciated is that when a building or a site is identified, this team works with the architect and the artist. So they're visually, I just love that creative piece because I don't have it. They're looking at what can we do exterior, interior, how do we blend what the building is about, right? So if you go to the lab in Randolph, right, I believe we have some frogs.
There's a frog.
some
Yeah, the
other-
frog is on there.
Oh, it's there, right, but so it's doesn't always, sometimes it's been a blend, they've done a phenomenal job, and it's really the vision of the artist.
And that's what gets approved by the advisory committee.
Yeah, another question, and this actually might be more for the commissioner, but do you guys have any data on how state employees that are at these facilities appreciate the artwork, because I think that was also some of the genesis behind this program, was to try and make state buildings more welcoming and inviting both to the people that work there, but also, people out in the community. So is there any internal data on
I
that?
don't, but,
We've not done any formal surveys, but my experience we have people that work in the building who are on the local art selection panel when we pull it together. And they are the ones who are our contact for the people in the building. So at least at the time that it all goes in, they've had a chance to look at the designs, comment on the ideas, things like that before we even build it. So,
And I just put up an example of our latest project too, that was at the Department of Children and Family Services office in Burlington. So this is the place to go to if you are requesting assistance from the state through DCF, and usually food assistance or any kind of other assistance, financial assistance. So the building is in a former industrial space. The walls are just the off-white painted brick, and it was just like a white walled room. And this is a room that you're going into potentially on like the worst day of your life, right? When you need to be, you're kind of at the bottom, and you're walking into a white room, and it was just horrific. So what the artist did was come in and meet with the group that was advising from the staff team. He talked to people to understand the use of the space. And then what he created were these really vibrant, colorful, welcoming, very large format paintings. And now when you go into that space, it totally, like, it feels welcoming. It feels calming. It feels, it just really resets the purpose. And that's both for the staff who are in there, who have really hard jobs, and for the people who are from the public coming into that building too. So one of the questions that if you want me to go through this, like, we have a little chart of kind of the outstanding projects, the projects that are open and underway.
Quick, we're looking at the time because we have to get to what the issue is before it's that we have to work.
So as we talked about, these are projects that are identified sometimes years in advance, and then things change. So we met with the commissioner, I was going to say earlier this year. It was last year, right? It was in the fall. And we talked through all of the projects that had been previously identified. Funds are in the Art Acquisition Fund, and we've been working with the BGS team over the years to identify what's moving forward and what's not. So what we want to share with everyone, just to give you a sense of where we are, is the projects that were previously identified and the status on them. The first was the State House, renovations to the State House that has been influxed over the years. And so what we talked about with the Commissioner's Office for that was to keep that, move forward with commissioning a work of art connected to the State House interpretive plan as it is, and then we will move forward with that one. The second, and probably the biggest change on this list, is the Supreme Court project here in Montpelier. And please, Commissioner, you're the expert on these two. So that project we were advised is no longer happening.
Right.
And what's currently under consideration with the advisory committee is to take that funding that was dedicated to that project and move it to other projects that are underway right now.
We have the dollar amount for that.
I do.
It's 150,000.
It was $72,500
That's what, 72,
for the Supreme Court.
72,
Sure.
72,000.
500.
If I understood right, any funds that aren't used are rolled over to future?
Yeah. Well, they're held in the fund for the identified purpose until the
And there's
committee.
specific
That particular
statute
project.
for that.
So they're,
Until-
I'm sorry, so they're not subject to repo like other
No.
things would be, correct?
That's what we want to be clear about,
Yes.
okay? Because that was a concern. This is subject to reallocations.
So each project is under 75,000?
The advisory committee can choose to potentially, could do 2 fiscal years together and it would be higher. Previously, the projects are, when it was allocated at 50,000, the projects were usually between 50 and 75. And now the projects are usually around 75,000.
So back in FY17, FY18, FY19, I believe every fiscal year in the capital bill, we put in 50,000.
Yeah, actually with that one, if I can just add that, we started because we wanted to get in early. We put like 5 or 10,000 in one fiscal year so that we could begin the design.
Up to 50,000.
Of the 50, within, so.
So some of that money's been expended.
Yes, well, not on the State House, not on the Supreme Court, but we and then it never moved forward. So we put a little bit, it was one of those things, it's going to happen next year, it's going to happen in 2 years. So we We just pieced a few bits of funding from different fiscal years, which added up to that 70.
And nothing in the statute says, I believe, that it has to be just one project. So previously it's been, we've done 225 or something like that.
Right. Wanda?
So Madam Chair, when we first started, when we created this program, I think Tom Torty was commissioner. And we created the idea and we were taking it out of the capital bill money.
Right.
You weren't doing an appropriation, so we had established the art in the state building. At that time, then you said the 50,000, but you didn't have the flexible language. So when we would come in and present, I think I'm just doing history, and we said, we're gonna do a new courthouse. That would be identified as the project that we were gonna do art in, and that's all that they focused on. You've really evolved this program to sort of align.
That was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So we're talking
But this is
2000.
how it's evolved to. This is where we've increased, where we're taking it out of the capital bill or eliminating it to the 50,000. It's moved to what is the real cost? Let's make the investment, what project's there? That's all I'm saying.
So since we're gonna run out of time, I'm gonna be the bad guy. How much capital, how much funding is currently available to buy art?
Within the
Of
acquisition
all
fund.
the projects that are some approved, started, not, where's? how much-
Within the acquisition fund, right?
I'm gonna do some
Rough number.
253, 250, 325.
$325,000.
I think I would have,
Don't do that
This year.
public.
I know, this is, I cheat with the numbers. I can find out by asking.
Less than $500,000.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, it's way less.
From fiscal FY 15 to now, we've got less than $500,000 worth of art that we're trying to put in various locations, various projects. I love art. I mean it.
Me
How
too.
much overhead is involved in managing this less than $500,000 worth of art?
Well,
Much.
I'm on the
Not
advisory
much.
board. Do you have to talk to?
It's not much.
It's,
Well,
yeah, it's very, it's
There's
very
at
minimal.
least two salaries that are here.
Oh,
But
whoa,
they
whoa,
do
whoa,
a
whoa, whoa,
lot,
whoa. This
yeah.
is the whole arts
Yeah,
council.
the whole-
They're involved in a lot more. This
This
is
is just one program.
This is
Yeah.
one tiny program
Very good.
of the Vermont Arts
None of
Council.
my salary gets paid by this program.
I'm just trying to get, well, that's in my mind. $75,000 is nothing in a $9 billion, I'm trying to get.
It's out of our capital budget.
It's out of the capital bill.
It's out of the capital bill.
Yeah.
We have a line item for
Okay.
specifically for art and state buildings. But the Arts Council has much more focus and
Yeah.
work than just the art and state buildings. So the rest of how they function as an arts council is through the general fund.
Okay, so this is just a.
They
small
administer
piece.
this little program. That's it.
This is a
Yeah.
tiny part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That helped me out.
But what's important is there's money that was put in FY 15 for the State House. There was money that was put in 3 consecutive fiscal years and the goal was the Supreme Court. Then there was money put in for the Asa Bloomer Building, money put in for the White River Courthouse, St. Albans Correctional Facility, DCF, the Juvenile Center, and then the Newport Courthouse. So there's money there that has been put in, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, and then last year in FY 25, we bumped that up to 75,000. So it would be good to get what is currently in the acquisition fund. It's 300,000, I'd say around 300,000 for that, Joe.
No, this may have been, but the last we knew, the Newport courthouse is being considered for replacement.
We don't, yeah, but that was for FY 26, so it's in our capital bill of last year, the 76,000. What is being proposed for the 75,000, what is being proposed for that is the Newport Courthouse. We don't know if that's gonna go forward or not at this point, but that's what Commissioner BGS and the folks in the Arts Council looking at is this is the next big project that's in the pipeline. And we're gonna put aside that 75,000 that we had in last year in the capital bill, the current capital bill. We're gonna put that for the courthouse. Now, they could start going through the process in 2 years from now and say, courthouse is not going forward.
And that's how we've kind of gotten into this with some of the other projects, is that we link it to another project that's in that year's capital bill. And then those projects
Don't go
will
forward.
go forward.
So this would be for the new Newport courthouse, where it to
Correct.
become, it's not for the existing Newport
No.
courthouse, which is, okay,
No.
that's what I, very good.
So the interpretive plan is still in the works. Right.
Correct. That is the state curator's office, not our office.
That's still in the works, it's been in the works. The Supreme Court, we've reallocated any capital bill money we had for any design documents for that building to begin with. That's no longer going forward. So those monies were targeted in the acquisition fund that have now been freed up. Because we've decided not to go forward with that. The Asa Bloomer building, we're doing a lot of work within that building in Rutland.
Yeah.
And that looks like that's moving forward.
It is.
So there's an art project for that. The White River Junction Courthouse, that's almost completed.
There it is. That's a rendering of what it will look like.
This is
Going in soon.
This is what's been approved for artwork within that building.
Mhm. Goes all the way up the stairs.
And then there is in St. Albans, we're renovating all the booking area. And all of that, we've put in some money over the last two fiscal years for that.
Not for the art project, for the building.
Hmm?
Not for the art project.
No, for us, for renovating the whole booking area and then some. So the advisory committee has decided that that would be a project, that's moving forward. And then the replacement for Woodside, which we had hoped to put in for Jen's, that didn't go forward, so now it's in an RFP process that we heard about yesterday, but that building has been targeted, as has the new Newport Courthouse. Those are the anticipated future expenditures between St. Albans, the replacement of Woodside, and the new Newport Courthouse.
And one of the questions that for the recommendation from Commissioner's Office and the Arts Council was to take the first two you mentioned, the potentially the State House money and the Supreme Court money, surely, and move those existing funds to existing projects. I think that's a discussion that could be had is, should those be totally new projects? Should they support existing projects? We wanted them to support existing projects because it's not hard to spend more money on art.
So how much, we need to know how much is in the fund from the FY15 that was targeted to the interpretive plan? How much for the Supreme Court in FY17, 18, and 19? Because that's where you're proposing to reallocate those,
Yeah.
And you
divert those funds.
on the list that we sent to the members for approval.
So it's,
You moved it.
yeah, it's 50,000 for the State House, 72,500 for the Supreme Court. Thank you. Smart major. We'll see.
Can I bring in what else?
Yes.
Kind of flagged my
Please do.
question. I'm gonna go into the 2-time
Yeah.
request. The other request that started getting me thinking about, do we want to have a bigger discussion about this, is the proposal currently for the Newport project is to combine FY26 and FY27, so $150,000 for that art project. My immediate sort of thought process was, does this impact the integrity of the program itself when part of the mission of the program is to highlight Vermont artists? So suddenly one Vermont artist is going to have access to a project that is funded for $150,000. That then for FY27 takes the pool away from other potential artists that could be benefiting from this. And is there an equity concern there? I started thinking about if there's extra money left over, this kind of blossomed in my head about how much are we paying these artists to be part of this program? Is that in and of itself equitable? But mostly I was concerned about combining 26 and 27. When we haven't talked about the capital bill for FY27 at all, and suddenly we're digging into future money. That was my biggest concern about the request that came through early December. So that's when I hit the pause button with these kind folks. And I too am a big fan of art.
That's right, it's on there. And then he's a thorn in your side.
Everybody's side.
It's good.
We love you, Troy.
It's important. Responsible use of these funds is important.
I don't recall whether Troy addressed this in his email, but is there precedent for using more than 1 year? Not that we have to go back to it anyway, but has it happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
Waterbury, Texas, when that big complex was being renovated, we combined 2 fiscal years. And to address your question, we actually put out a call for 2 locations in the building. We had an artist for the courtyard and we did one for the mural in the main lobby. We've also had multiple artists within a $50,000 or $75,000 budget. So that's why there's 60 artists for 35 sites. So there's often multiple artists, but as the world increases in costs of materials and other things, we've found that it tends to be more impactful. We have 1 or 2 projects in one site versus when the program first began, we'd put 5,000 here and 10,000 here, and we'd have 4 or 5 projects with 5 or 10,000 each. And it was just a lot of administration for not a lot of impact. And so over time, we've kind of said, all right, let's pick the projects where we're going to have the most impact. Do a nice project.
Yeah. And this is not me.
Oh, no.
worried
I was
about
great.
the various
I just-
use of funds
Yeah.
with this group. I mean, that is not at all my concern. I just want to
Yeah.
be prudent and
Yeah.
thorough in having the committee consider this.
So at the Waterbury complex, then some artist, I guess you said there were 2 installations there.
Yeah.
Was given more than a year's worth, because that was the concern, right? I mean, I remember you saying that multiple people in 1 year had received, but has somebody gotten more than the 50 or the 75 in a year?
I think maybe the mural artist got like 60.
And
And
the
the
50 that,
and the
yeah.
other got 40 or something.
Right.
It was I'd have to look back at the details, but it was a little bit more, but that wall is a spectacular mural that took her, as she, her time is less valued than it
Oh, no
probably
doubt.
should have,
No
but
doubt, yeah.
yes.
And part of the question is too, I mean, I think worth bringing up, while it is great to have more funds for a bigger project, there's also, I mean, we're looking at a large list of things that are very large projects that change over time. To bring that in too.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, I just wanna and I'll take, the response, when we met, we looked at the FY 26-27 capital bill as a 2-year bill. And you had identified for 27. We identified that, but we also were cognizant that there's a budget adjustment and you could change it. But I think that's also why it was identified, I mean, we were proposing, if we are successful with the Newport Court building, that is going to be another very large project.
Multi-year.
Multi-year project, so.
So your
I just
proposal,
wanted
what
that-
was proposed to the advisory committee
Was
was the FY 15, FY 17, 18, and 19 for a total of 120,000.5 to be directed towards the Newport Courthouse.
No.
we were gonna direct that one to, well, this is another question. I would defer on State House plans to everyone in this room because that's not us.
We don't know.
We-
That's under the curator.
Yes, the request from, I believe, was to hold that funding for the State House,
12,500.
anticipating it would move forward.
I mean, I'll be happy to
Yes.
adjust it based on
Plus
the
more.
work that BGS has been doing with the Sergeant at Arms and the architect. So there's been some planning money. I think you're all aware, there's been some discussion around enhancements to support security and other things. Because that project, we have an architect, we're moving forward. We understand that the legislature still needs to finalize the approval, but in this discussion to hold some of that. And it's not because we think that, we didn't want to recommend removing that money and then having that project
So
approved.
the full 50,000 that was put towards the interpretive plan in FY 15, you're not proposing pulling all of that. You're proposing leaving some in there to go towards the possible updates to our life and safety pieces of the State House, because we're gonna if we go forward with it, we're gonna reconfigure all the
I
entrance.
believe they have 150,000 assigned to that, but
No, just
Let me,
50.
Just 50, okay.
Yeah.
I just sent the original
Yeah, I can share
email
that.
that started this for me to the entire committee, so you can all look at it.
This is a document that might be too intense for everyone, but let me find it and I will share that document with the numbers on it. That's I mean, these are also information that we can share with the advisory committee about the State House. We want to support the projects that are happening. We love all of them equally. Also, I think what we've talked about is the desire to move this funding. It doesn't help the public to keep it there, and we want to be supporting artists and supporting state workers with it. So I think I can share this. What did I say?
I do the one that was in the email.
Yeah.
So, well,
Yeah, just we have the numbers pulled up. But my question actually is kind of a little deviated from it, but I was just curious. You know, you were talking a little bit about decommissioning art potentially in the future. I was more curious, what happens if a building or a property is decommissioned and there's art or it's sold and there's art on it? What's the process to removing the art, or does it get sold with the building?
Well, that recently happened.
Oh, yeah. That's why I like, that's.
108 Cherry,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, so what was the?
Well, we haven't put it.
How about the name on the building? You want to get into that one?
That art be removed from the building and the state curator has it in storage at the moment. We're trying to find a new home for the photography that was in the lobby area. And then the new work that we were working on, we shifted to the Lakeside Department of Children and Family Services building that you saw the picture of. So.
And one of the things we've talked about with the Asa Bloomer building, I believe hearing that there were some considerations about that too, was to set a requirement for that the art is removable so that it's not built into the walls or the floor, but it could be something that could be moved.
That's why I asked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know Asa Bloomers between a state, or they're trying to transfer it.
So what they really need some of our direction, approval, disapproval, changes, whatever, because Troy brought this because part of the thinking is does this kick into our reallocation process? Because our reallocation process really took hold more so about 6 years ago. And this program has been in place much longer than that. And it also may impact our decisions on the Newport Courthouse going forward or FY 26, 27. We're still involved in that capital bill because we're going to go through a BAA process, which means in the BAA, you could also move some money around in the current FY 26 budget and move money around 27. So we haven't made any of those decisions. So what is being proposed? The Supreme Court in Montpelier is not going forward. Okay? In the fund is $72,500 for that project. So what Commissioner BGS proposed to the advisory committee is $12,500 of that be moved up to the State House for if we do any State House expansion.
Yep.
For life and safety, which
I just want to say the working group proposed it. I didn't do
you didn't do that, the working group did.
us. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and you proposed that to the advisory committee.
Proposed it to the
You're
advisory.
part of that.
That's right.
You're part of that, and you're part of that.
Yes.
Okay, so 12,500 is being proposed to be moved up if and when we do the expansion for life safety here at the State House. 40,000 is for the Asa Bloomer building, which is currently in play. Currently, the process is going forward. And then 20,000 for the new juvenile center. So that was what was being proposed
And then combining 26 and 27 for the new.
for Newport, but we haven't made any decisions on FY 26, 27 for Newport or even Art and State Building. So we do have a line item, 75,000. Do we want to tie up that total 150,000 for a new courthouse in Newport? So those were the little triggers that Troy kind of started thinking about, and he emailed me, and I said, well, let's have the committee weigh in on this. So that's why they're here, for us to weigh in. Should they go forward with this proposal? Should they go forward with part of this proposal and maybe some of it put on hold for a little bit? Or not go forward with the proposal?
So we were talking before, within the fund right now, is there flexibility to sort of spruce up the existing art pieces
Well,
like we were talking about, or is there nothing for that? Because I'm just wondering, would a portion of this be better allocated for that purpose rather than coming back in the future?
So there's nothing for that in the statute, and in the statute, it says that it becomes property of the Vermont State Curator's Office and the Vermont Collection, and part of that is caring for the collection. And we all understand that is an expensive proposition that does not have attached funding right now. So I think we're not against it. It's just not in the statute, I would say.
We haven't addressed this.
Yes,
It's
that's what I
something that's been percolating for the last few years, but it has not been
It might be
addressed.
good to address. I'm thinking before we make any decisions on this, we got a bit of money.
Well, they're kind of on a time frame to make a decision here on this before we get into maintenance and upkeep of current.
So for the committee, you do a line item for the curator in the capital bill. And that is part of what those funds are for. I don't think what hasn't happened is we haven't really sat down with David and maybe looked at the inventory and prioritized. I don't believe we need statutory authority to do that. And I think that we have the ability with the language that you have given us. And I think we have the ability with the source of funds that we currently have. If they did an inventory and came up with a list, and all of a sudden the maintenance and repair was 200,000, and I'm just picking a number out of the sky, then I would say to you, I don't have the funds for that, right? I've got some ability working with David to maintain that.
So what we could do in the capital bill, when we have the line item for the curator, we could put in language that indicates the curator and BGS and the Arts Council do an inventory of the projects, previous art and state buildings projects that are there
A current condition.
in current condition. We could do that in the
Yes.
capital bill.
Please.
Anybody remember that?
Wait,
As long as we don't limit the funds that you give. to
Well, this is the
BGS.
inventory.
Right.
To figure
Because
out
that's
what the
really
projected
important.
cost would be, so next year, whomever is sitting in this room would then get the inventory. And then could make the determination in that capital bill whether to put money in.
And this is a question, that money's already in that fund, but would that be something that the Arts Council could spend part of that fund on, because that is a worthy project. It's also a lot of staff time, and it will involve probably
For the
bringing in
inventory.
for the inventory, yeah.
We
Bringing-
can talk about
Okay.
that when we do the capital.
Right, you may have more time than our one curator.
I think it's gonna involve expertise of outside consultants on a lot of these too, so I just,
That's a great idea.
yeah.
So is that path something the committee's willing to do when we start looking at the capital
Mm-hmm.
bill to talk about the inventory? for
Yes.
projects?
Yeah, and then we would just, and we should spend just having a conversation about the portion of funds, because all of a sudden I'm sitting here going, well, if we have an outsider, then we don't, maybe we do want to dedicate. Maybe you do want to talk about a little bit of the current funds to be used for that. I'm not recommending it, I'm just saying I think we have to talk about it. Because I can't take that 50,000 and all of a sudden say, David, you have no money to do your other stuff.
All right, so I'm pushing this along because we have some other testimony. So there's two pieces to this. There's the reallocation, sort of the 72,500 to those three projects. I see that as one piece. Then I see tying up the 150,000 from FY 26 and FY 27 capital bill to be used for the proposed new Newport courthouse. Do we really want to tie our hands up to that?
And I'm sure, I think when we talk about, the authority you've given us on Newport and to purchase land, that is why I put that one on the list. Because we're working on getting that land, and you've appropriated previous funds in years. So design, It's really about the location. So,
It's getting a land, it's getting the land somewhere.
yeah,
And the question is, we've got the juvenile center, which is out for an RFP. So that looks like that's gonna move ahead. The women's facility, we don't know what's gonna happen with that one and the time frame. And then the Newport Courthouse, they're looking for land to purchase.
well, and actually the women's correctional facility is not on this list.
I know, but I'm balancing the three big projects that we have before us. Okay? The three big projects we have before us is the juvenile center, the women's correctional facility, and the new Newport courthouse. Those are the three big projects we have before us. We know that we're gonna move forward with the juvenile center, we hope, with the RFP coming back. Replacement of the women's correctional facility is more up in the air in terms of what we're gonna do and how we move forward. And then the Newport courthouse, we know we're gonna be purchasing land. That's what we
And
need
have
to do.
this- And we have some design.
And you have some design. So of those three, the one that's really not moving forward as quickly is the women's facility. So that's what we gotta balance. So do we wanna tie up FY 26 and 27 monies to go for the advisory committee to say, yes, we're gonna do that towards the new Newport courthouse? Are we gonna do that? Or do we want to kind of put that on hold and wait until we get through our BAA process? But allow the other reallocations of the 72,005 to go to those other three projects. Kevin?
I'd like to give an opinion. I'd like us to be able to accumulate whatever money we think we can afford to buy investment art and let you guys decide how to do it and how to maintain it the best bang for the buck, and keep us out of the nitty gritty on where it goes, how much it comes and all this, because we don't know the best way to spend that money, which is a pittance compared to the big picture. So I would like to see you manage it and make the language, give them the authority to do that, rather than us, every time the project starts, stops, ends.
The
begins.
issue right now is tying up the capital bill before we've made any decisions on the 2-year budget cycle. That's the issue. It's not so much the 72,500 being moved around.
Can I also add that we could, given these moving parts, given the changes in Newport, we're still early enough in the process that if we just identify FY 26 as being for Newport, we're not gonna know, we're not even gonna know by the end of this year, right, what that total project is. So if we could, another option, just move forward with FY 26 for the Newport courthouse, pause on FY 27, go next year, reevaluate and see what happens with the budget adjustment, and then reevaluate next year. Do we want to, does it seem right to do them together? What it allow us to do by starting now on the Newport courthouse is to be at the beginning phases of design with the architects. And I mean, I guess we're not quite to architect because you're looking for land.
We're ready for the site.
No,
You are.
we've done site, you've given authority to buildings and general services to do design, planning, and to purchase land.
But there's no land yet.
We've done searches outside Newport, within Newport, and we may have a potential site that we are exploring. So we are in alignment with the direction of the legislature and the priorities. We continue to move that project forward. So I think, and that's how it ends up on the list. I mean, you've already directed and given the Commissioner of Buildings and General Services authority to purchase land. It's not an item, and we have the
Right.
funding that is available
Right.
for.
We've done that over
for
the
that.
past
You've
few
already done
years.
that.
The question
And that's
is,
why it's on the list.
right, and the question is, you're tying up that 75,000 in FY 27 to go to Newport, and we have not done our work yet in budget adjustment. And I know half the committee is brand new here and has never gone through the budget adjustment in a 2-year capital bill. There's other folks that have. We move money around between the 2 fiscal years. And we may delay another project. We may delay a project that we were gung ho last year when we put the bill together, and we may delay it totally and pull that money and put it someplace else. So half of you have not gone through that BAA process, the other half of you have. So the question is, do we tie our hands right now in terms of our BAA process?
No.
Sounds like, no.
Sounds like no.
Okay, well, we got something.
No.
But this is really very helpful because also this is helpful information that we don't have on the daily either. And we're all working together to pull that information together. So it's really helpful to have the input from the committee to bring back to the advisory committee. Should use a different name than committee, bring back to the advisory committee so that they can make that decision too.
So is the committee comfortable with the first part of moving that 72,005 to those two projects that have been
Yep.
highlighted?
Yep.
The committee's fine with that. So it's the issue with FY 26 and FY 27. Can you just put a hold on that until we do our BAA work?
Even for FY 26.
No,
No, being keep 26,
because we gave, wait, did,
put 75,000 in FY 26 for art and state buildings. We didn't designate where that money goes. That's not.
Well,
what we-
I mean, the advisory committee.
Right, right.
As soon as the advisory committee makes that recommendation, the funds go to the art acquisition fund and then.
But we've
Yeah, for
already
26.
appropriated, we already approved in FY 26, but we're only halfway through it,
But
75,000.
the question at hand is the 75 grand for FY 27.
Yeah.
Which is, seems like off the table. We're gonna pause on that, which I'm good. That's great.
Okay, so FY 27 is off the table. But you can designate the 75,000 for FY 26 to the new Newport courthouse.
Great. And what we'll do is transfer it to the acquisition fund. It's proposed for this project. The advisory committee in 2 years may be coming back to it to deliver. Well, it depends on the project, but I think that's the flexibility you've given the program and how you've empowered the advisory committee to be able to have those discussions working with the Arts Council.
So we have a clear path ahead. People are clear. Troy, you're comfortable because you're on the advisory committee. So two things. We'd like to know what the balance is in the acquisition.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So we can get that back to
And
you.
the other thing, if you could be thinking about the inventory piece and maybe some language or something we can put in the capital bill when we get it, 2-year project, the 2-year budget. Be thinking about that and maybe we can put in some language for that. Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
So we are shifting gears. Can we take a 5-minute break real fast?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, was that not me?
I'm Taylor here.
That was very helpful.
Caitlin.
Off of YouTube, folks.
I'm still.
sorry.
You're already.
We're live. Off YouTube.